Welcome back, folks, to the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast. On today's show, we have Robert Lee from Signify. Greg?
That's right. Signify, one of the world, or probably the world's leading lighting company. They used to be Philips, as we all know, but now they're Signify. And their purpose is to unlock the extraordinary potential of light for brighter lives in a better world. They have just about everything you can imagine in lighting, and they're always innovative, always coming up with new product. They are truly the leader in lighting.
So Robert E. Lee from Signify coming on, talking controls and other aspects of the lighting business. Always a pleasure to talk to Rob. We've spoken to him a few times over the years.
Yeah, this is at least the second time now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So go to signify.com. That's SIGNF. Oh, signify.com. That's SIGNIFY.com. That was a tongue twister, Greg.
You got it down, though. We know it.
Long-time member of Nailed. Thank you for your support, Signify. Long-time member of Nailed. Leader in Nailed. So thank you for being a part of the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors. Coming out hot with our new Evolve lighting Specialist program. Oh, I just said the name, Greg. That's right.
There it is.
Evolve, Lighting Specialist Evolve, coming out hot. Folks, enjoy.
Welcome to the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast, Robert.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
Say hello to Greg Ehrich.
Hi, Robert. Good to see you.
Hi there. Likewise, gentlemen. It's been a while.
It has, yeah.
You know, Robert, we're here to talk today about Signify's, I would say, emerging and consistently growing position in the world of IoT. So we spoke, is that a good way to describe it? It's an emerging position, or it's evolving?
I would say, actually, Signify has played a very instrumental role in the leadership role in terms of defining technical requirements, and is also establishing a partnership with multiple companies. So I will probably not so much as emerging per se. I would say probably just extending our leadership position across multiple areas in product innovation, partnership, and also, helping our customers.
Do you have a lot of revenue coming directly from IoT at this point, or is it still something that you're developing?
Absolutely. We have a lot of revenue coming from IoT across multiple disciplines, both in terms of components, the luminaires, and also services and software as well. And I only support the component side of the business, so I can really speak to other colleagues on Signify, because as you know, it's a global company. But I'm aware of a lot of things that are happening, and we are trying to, focus on this future of lighting, which, as we all know, is pretty pivotal for the industry as a whole.
That's what we're going to dive into a little today. But you write that you're excited about the next decade of lighting. What specifically excites you?
I think that exciting really comes in multiple shape and form and sizes. I think that exciting in terms of collaboration. I'm in the personal opinion that the Internet of Things, or IoT, really is going to break down the wall. So you really can't think of it in terms of silos. And that change, that sort of a change in perception and attitude, really bringing a different level of engagement and different kind of innovation, as well as opportunities for every component, every players, not just those who are offering the luminaires, but also those who are doing the services, right? And even for the end customer. So there's really a lot of exciting things are happening around us, and some of those are very well known. Others maybe is under the radar, but I'm personally involved, so I'm very excited about all of those.
Exciting also denotes a certain amount of uncertainty about the future. When somebody says they're excited about something, it's generally because they don't know what's going to happen. What is it that you are excited about, and how do you think it's going to translate into a defined new future for the lighting business?
Well, let's talk about something I wrote in my blog, and then specifically about lighting industry. I'm predicting what the lighting industry might be like a decade from now. And I think that excitement is about the potential opportunity and also in terms of possibility. Of course, there's always a certain level of apprehension, uncertainties in terms of what future may hold. But if you take a look at the blog in which I talk about 3 pillars of the lighting industry, and this is just based on what I read, and not to say, anything particular from a competitive standpoint. If you look at things that are happening around us, I think all of us can agree that Internet of Things has ushered things like, autonomous vehicle, right? Sensors about just about everything that is around us, whether it's your cell phone or even the luminaires. So all of that's kind of converging towards a sort of future state in which I made the argument in my blog that machine learning, big data, and also the augmented reality as well as digital infrastructure will really help to transform the lighting industry as a whole moving forward. And I think that's really the possibility that made me extremely excited about.
I think it's going to transform all industries. Why do you feel, and this is something I ask, we talked with Silver about, we talked with McWong and other companies about, why do you feel that lighting is so important in IoT?
Well, first of all, when you mentioned about Silver and McWong, actually those are the company that I have a personal and also professional relationship with. In fact, the CTO of Silver actually was kind enough to give me a few quotes for me to use in my blog. And then, so I think McWong is obviously a very well-known company. But the point is that all of those companies, including Signify, are working together to help to advance the lighting. Because think about it this way, right? Lighting is all around us. You have lighting in your room right now. All of us have lighting or require lighting when we get into the building to do work or even get out the work at home. So there's a lot of, so lighting is really around us. So that's a big, many of us in Signify is untapped avenue for thinking about how lighting can be transformed with a digitization or IoT. So I think that's really why I think lighting certainly will become a more important, if not the most important areas in terms of changing our mood. So in terms of energy saving and things of that nature. So there's really a lot of possibility in terms of lighting industry when you consider connectivity as part of the equation.
Now, also in your blog, you talk about the future and what lighting's going to look like in 2030. And you said the answer lies in a future state called the Mirrorworld. Yep. Tell me what the hell the Mirrorworld is.
Actually, there's a terminology that was coined by some of the futurists. So Mirrorworld, think about it this way then. So everything that we interact with today is a physical world, right? Mm-hmm. And the Mirrorworld is that imagine all of that is actually represented in a digital paradigm or digital world. So imagine, if you will, I think that I use the analogy of Pokemon Go. For those of us who know what the Pokemon Go is really about integrating this information through the use of a smartphone. So you can see these Pokemon character, appearing as you use a phone to hunt around those, the characters. My son was really into that. So I think that is really a sort of telltale sign of what the augmented reality could be like in the future. So imagine if you go into a room where you have light fixtures, right? So if you are maintenance personnel, imagine, this is what I explain in my blog, is that you can hold up a device. It could be a smartphone. It could be, you name it, right? In the next 5 to 10 years, might be some of the devices that they can actually point at the ceiling and look at the light fixture to be able to tell this is a particular ID or this is the device that I need to check for example, emergency audit. Right? They have to do that on a regular basis. So that's one example of the mirror world in which everything that we see, everything that's around us can be digitized so that information becomes available to us wherever we are and whenever we are.
But now you brought up the idea of maintenance and that they had to have a cell phone. You're talking mirror world as they can be anywhere. They don't actually have to be to the fixture or under the fixture using the phone. You're saying true. They can just look.
That's true. And I think that kind of make it more like a WALL-E world. We're sitting in our chair and be able to virtually immerse ourselves in the environment. And then, so I think that we might be just scratching the surface in terms of possibility when you think about connected lighting by incorporating things like augmented reality or virtual reality or, machine learning and big data and all of that stuff.
So there's going to have to be an accepted platform. We've talked to a number of different people about connected lighting, whether it's power over Ethernet or Bluetooth mesh or 0 to 10, what is going to be the format or the platform that everyone's going to go with?
I think that's going to be a pretty interesting question. Again, I'm speaking for myself. I think that first of all, one of the things I'm being advocating, and especially those from Signify, is that you have to have a connected lighting to begin with. And then when you get into connected lighting, there are a lot of different variation of that. You mentioned about the power over Ethernet is one example. You may also have things like, for example, DALI, or, there are a lot of different things. And I think the standard organizations such as DIA, ANSI are trying to put their hands around that. So I'm a little more pragmatic because my background is really in the telecom industry. So I can speak from my personal prior experience before I joined lighting that there could be a lot of different wireless protocol to implement this sort of data transmission, whether you're indoor or outdoor. So I think that, it's hard to say which one is going to be the dominant force factor, but I think that overall you have to recognize that the common DNA across all those technologies is about information exchange, or what I would call it a telemetry, which is sharing information from one device to the other to a centralized controller. So if you kind of remove this sort of which technology is better, but focus on the key essence, which is basically, accessing data remotely to do diagnostic maintenance, I think all of the technology may have its own unique benefits, depends on applications.
So you're going to need a device then, if we're talking lighting, and I assume it's going to be in the driver. That are you saying that you should make a driver that can cover all the different platforms, or are you saying people are going to pick a platform and that driver is going to work for this one, and then this driver works for that one? So two different buildings could be right next to each other and have totally different systems. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so I think that again, in the driver, that's a very good segue into something I like to consider is that to build this sort of digital vision or digital infrastructure, you really have to start with the most basic building block. And I think that here in Signify, as many of you know, we are advocating a so-called, I call it a digital LED drivers. This is different from your so-called analog driver in the sense that it has built-in diagnostic and built-in memory. So everything that is about this driver and the luminaire itself is maintained and kept a record of, on which you can access and can do some sort of data extraction and interpolation. And that's where the fun things really come about, right? Because once you have the data, then you're able to do something that you're not able to do so versus a 0 to 10 driver, for example. So obviously this is going to be a trade-off, but I think that trade-off probably will pay for itself down the road, because if you think about the lighting, any light fixture, for example, especially LED, which has a much longer lifespan than your traditional lighting system. So whatever money you spend today, if you consider it over the cement lifetime of a light of the lighting fixture, for example, that really pay for itself with that incremental investment in that digital, in this all digital LED driver, for example.
So you're saying existing buildings won't have to be rewired. You're saying that, but the fixture itself will have to most likely be replaced for everything to work this way.
Yes. So, for example, if you have a fixture with a fluorescent light tube, for example, right? So when they consider retrofit, they need to think, hey, it's not just about maximizing minimizing rather your expenditure today, but think about 5 years from now, or even 10 years, which when you do the LED retrofit, for example, the light fixture probably will still be there. And then in that case, what are the future use cases that you may not anticipate? I think that that's sort of the decision is not just at the buyer's level, but somebody who's at the very highest level echelon of the corporate company that manages all the different locations have to take that into consideration so that they can sit their perspective much longer than just trying to fit within the current budget. Because if you do that, and if you do with not to say the 0 to 10 is not good, but you kind of limit yourself down the road in terms of the things that you may want to do. And I think that's sort of a short-sightedness that we need to guard against by having more of a holistic view about the future of lighting. If you take this a longer view, for example.
So as of today, what can a lighting distributor do to future-proof their lighting or the customer's lighting?
I think that's a very broad question. So let me try to kind of peel it, onion one layer at a time. For example, I think the first thing is that they have to research, because there are so many things that has happened in the lighting industry for the past couple years or 3 years or so, right? So you have multiple companies come out with a really cool and innovative lighting control solutions, and each have their own strength and perhaps some weaknesses, and I can't speak to all of them. So you have to do some research. You kind of arm yourself with the latest information. That's number one. I think the other thing that comes to mind is that you have to kind of understand that what kind of use cases you might want to support, and that's something you may have to not just ask your colleague, perhaps asking the people who are in charge. Say, hey, maybe somebody's at the IT department or somebody higher up. Hey, we have the opportunity to make that transformation that will impact us for the next 3 or 5 years, for example. Then how can we leverage this sort of a pivotal moment so that you make the right investment for the future, not just for the current sake? And I think last but not least, I'd also, just trying to study some other use cases. There are a lot of great reports, news about how the company are leveraging the connected lighting solutions. Like if you go into the DLC, for example, they have a lot of good information over there to talk about the future use cases so they can start to share that information internally to make the right kind of decision.
See, I kind of, I'm skeptical. Okay. So I sell light bulbs every day to end user clients, and I'm involved in a lot of projects where large companies are upgrading all of their lighting. And when I speak to them about IoT or about connected lighting, they couldn't care less. And, when it comes down to like these potential use cases and stuff like this, like I'm in the trenches, man. My people are selling the final project, and I'm selling the final project, and then we're installing and commissioning and this sort of stuff. And they get sensors, they get on off, saves energy. They get wattage reduction. And then we start to speak to them about IoT, and the faces go blank. And we start talking to them about data, and the faces go blank. We start talking about future proof, and the faces go blank. And we had one project where a mesh network would have increased a $400,000 project to a $700,000 project.
Double.
And that went off the table. That went off the table the second it was put on the table.
Yep.
So I'm unconvinced. I'm not sure. Like, I think there are some customers there. I think my gut instinct here, Robert, says that to me, and I'm just a light bulb salesman in the front lines. I have a little counter here. Who am I to say? But from my perspective, I think this is a lot of until someone wants the data. So I don't like. Why would what is the corporation going to do with the data? What is the business case there for the customer? Not something that some white tower people thought around and thought up as a use case. I want to know, what is it the customer wants to know from their light fixtures or their connected devices that they don't already know or don't already have access to?
Okay, so I think that's a great question. I think that's something that actually I and also many the control company that I deal with who have to pitch to the end customers are grappling with. Because when it comes to lighting, it's very easy people just say, hey, I don't need that sort of extra capability because they don't know what to do with the data. So I think that is a very acute problem that we're dealing with. And the way I would respond to that is the following. First of all, for the lighting industry, we need to do a better job in terms of articulating what the value of that data is. And I am one of the person who is advocating with R&D team, say, hey, we need to show what the data can do for you. And then in this block that I mentioned, data become essential, especially when you come into the maintenance. And let me give you an example, is that a lot of time right now, fixtures went out of service. And we don't know the reason why. It could be a power surge. It could be a natural disaster like hurricane. It could be many other reasons. So that causes a great deal of inconvenience and also in terms of labor and cost to get that replaced. Right? So there's the cost associated with that. We don't know, depends on the application. If it's outdoor street area lighting or indoor lighting, the cost of replacement could vary quite significantly. And that replacement cost is not captured when you look at a quote, for example, right? If you're doing lighting retrofit, car dealerships and whatnot, they don't look at the cost for repair. They just look at upfront investment cost, right? Replacing a system A with system B or comparing system X versus Y versus Z. So they didn't take into this maintenance cost aspect into the equation. So I think what I try to allude to is that by having connected lighting with the data, then you're able to use that information in a very intelligent way. By intelligent, I'm talking about you can start to build out the data point. I think that based on this pattern, based on this scenario, you could have failure at this moment. And that's where the machine learning comes in. So that's one aspect of the data that people who do the sort of a purchase decision at the buyer side probably do not realize. And this is something that lighting industry as a whole will need to do a much better job when you talk about connected lighting. It's not just about energy saving, which, by the way, I think we need to turn a chapter on that because everybody knows there's energy saving going from conventional to LED. But it's the next step in terms of benefit. I think that's where we need to do a much better job of articulating and trying to outline that in the blog. And so that's a bit of a long-winded answer to a question that's very acute. I think that people at that much higher level up in the corporation recognize that. And that's something that we need to do a better job, including myself, to articulate it.
Yeah, I don't think maintenance savings is going to sell it. I think there are some very large niche customers for that. And what I'm saying is that, like, perhaps municipalities with their street lighting burnouts, perhaps they could get ahead of that a little bit rather than relying on a phone call from a citizen or something like that.
Yep.
That's a possibility. But the vast majority of my customers will not buy that and pay more for that. So I think the maintenance, it's got to be like maintenance and energy savings both have to be set aside.
Mhm.
And we got to say, what data can we collect? And why would this data be interesting to other people, regardless of maintenance or energy savings? What is the data we can collect? How can it then be used? And once that data, the maintenance data just isn't valuable enough. Is it valuable? Is what you're saying good? Yes, I agree with you that, gosh, wouldn't it be great if fixture 127 told the maintenance manager that its driver was out and told him the brand of driver and what he needed to do to fix it? Yeah, that would be great. But that information isn't critically valuable enough to justify the capital expenditure, the ongoing commissioning, because not only that, though, but there's a burden to managing this IoT.
Absolutely.
So now you have to do something with the information. That's a human resources question. So now you're spending money in order to do something with the data that you're collecting from your lighting. Why would people do that? This is a tough business case, man.
It is true, and I think that's one thing that you don't know what you don't know. In a way, it's kind of something,
sure.
Right? You don't know what you don't know. I think that's where the IoT really presents the opportunity. Where if you make the investment today, you may hedge yourself against some of the future scenario in which you do need that data. And so a little bit is kind of I will call it upselling, quite frankly, right? Because, for most of us, maintenance, if you cross out the maintenance, what else can you do with the connected lighting? I have a control company that is a partner of Signify. They're able to leverage the data collected because these are the sensor data, for example. They know where people are congregating within a building, so it can help from a retail standpoint. You can see, this is a layout that optimizes my traffic flow. So there's some sort of I will call it moving away from the maintenance aspect, more focus on more of a revenue generating aspect. So there's one potential use case of having a digital infrastructure that give you the sort of a data set that you didn't realize, hey, I can turn that into something valuable as I plan for the store layout. Especially nowadays, everybody's talking about virtual, right? Shopping on Amazon, shopping on whatever it may be. So bringing people to the store to have them to get the most optimal experience. That's one scenario where you do need the data. And another scenario is actually we have Signify offering this solution. It's called Li-Fi, for example. Basically, lighting provided high-speed data, for instance. So that's another example where you can use data to tell shopper, for example, as you walk down the aisle of this produce department, we have this wonderful seasonal harvest that is on sale right now. And then, they can marry that sort of a end user profile if they want to opt in with sort of a coupon that they can leverage. So there's a lot of, new use cases.
Yeah, that sounds, that sounds like something from a brainstorming session.
And no,
right?
it's not. It's actually being discussed, and then I'm only selling on the component side, right? But if you talk about IoT, how many of us can imagine self-driving cars 5 years ago, right?
Wait, hang on a second here. So I agree with you that yes, what I'm not saying that this is not going to happen. What I'm saying is that I haven't heard, like, there's a lot of brainstorming about what's going to happen, but let me there's two directions I want to go to here. I'm going to go with the first one. Okay. The first one is, do you know Peter Drucker? Do you know who that is?
Yep.
He's the famous management consultant, right? Mm-hmm. And he asked the good question, which is, who is the customer, right? What does the customer want to buy? Okay. So those two questions are very key. So you take example of Alta Vista. You remember Alta Vista, the search engine?
Yep. Okay. Many years ago, right.
Okay. Or Yahoo is another example of this, right? When they were starting their businesses, their customer was the person that was searching on Alta Vista. Okay. That was their customer. Google came in and they said, our customer is not the person searching Google. Our customer is the person who wants to advertise to the person who's searching Google. So in fact, our product is the user. Okay? Our product is the user. So Google's product is people using their search engine. Okay?
Okay.
That was their insight. They changed that they reversed it. So they said, we're not serving the people using Google. We're going to bring people of a certain type and subset them so that other people will pay to know what they're searching for. That's what Google did. Okay. And it's genius. Someone has to do this with this IoT, because I'll tell you right now, the traditional customer of a light fixture has no interest in any of this right now. And I'm telling you that from the streets. Now, are there some niche markets here and there? Yes, there are going to be niche examples or areas. Maybe some of these areas will be quite vast. Like I said, municipal street lighting is an example where this argument will, like where lighting people can predict the thing. What I think is that once the information is valuable, someone's willing to pay for it, why would anyone buy the light fixture? The person who wants the information will pay for the light fixture. Does that make sense? Otherwise, the data is not worth anything.
So I think that let's kind of follow that train of thought here. So the people who will be interested in the data, let's say, right? Mm-hmm. So who are those people? Because ultimately those people have the big sway over, I want to have this sort of the next step up in terms of data collectability, right? Mm-hmm. Connected lighting, for example. And let me just say this, and I think those people are usually not the people who are looking at the sort of, lighting fixture retrofit, for example, or even the new install. Maybe they do in the new install situation because, hey, I want to have a brand new clean slate. Let me talk a little bit about what budget can I allocate to lighting or IT infrastructure. And I think those are the people usually is like one or two or even three layers removed from the normal day-to-day purchase decision, the so-called people that you deal with in the trenches. And I think this is where it's really a long sales cycle. And what I mean by that is that if anybody in my position who is thinking about connected lighting, you have to know who are you talking to. So in that example of Google realizing that, hey, I need to market to the advertiser because that's where they are willing to pay the money to attract the people to the goods and services. One thing to keep in mind is that ultimately who's going to pay those advertisers? Their customers. Their customer had to buy the goods and services online. So they want to be able to present that information in the most optimized way through SEO, search engine optimization, for example, right? So if you follow the same train of thought, if you apply that to lighting industry, absolutely. I think the people who are making the purchase decision, they have a very clear mandate that I have this X dollar amount for lighting. But if you go beyond the people who are making sort of purchase decision and expanding the mindset of people who are the, CTO.
I think you have to go beyond that.
Yeah, but sure.
You have to go beyond that.
That's why it's a total change in mindset. Technology is there; it's not mature, and then we're struggling really to articulate some of the benefit beyond energy saving or even maintenance. But I think that's where IoT has become such a fast evolving industry across multiple vertical that there are so many different new use cases are being developed. So do you ask me what do I know what they might be?
I'll give you an example. A really dark, bad example. Okay. Of how you could change the customer. Mm-hmm. Okay. So that now someone else who wants the data is willing to pay for the light fixtures. Okay. So let's say that, let's just create a hypothetical scenario. Okay. Mm-hmm. So let's say you take a foreign nation state that really likes to spy on the companies of another foreign nation state and steal, let's call it, one of them will call them Oceania, okay? And the other one will call Euro, okay? So Oceania likes to spy on Euro's businesses, right? And let's say there's a lighting contractor in Euro who can go then to who has lots of customers that this other country wants to spy on, And he says, you know what? I can give you your lighting for a very, very low price, actually. And they then install connected lighting that monitors what the goings on in that building. Maybe without those people knowing, maybe it offers them some unique things where they can address it and turn their lights on, but they're recording the information of what's going on in that building. Maybe it has microphones involved, and so the lighting's all connected, and it's syncing all these conversations, sending packages of data to the other country. So there's an example of where the value of the data exceeds the value of the lighting and the light fixtures, right? That's where we have to get to. Now, my hypothetical situation involves the machinations of foreign states on one another, but that information could be potentially valuable. So, for example, let's say distributor A's customer is Hewlett Packard or IBM or Northrop Grumman or Boeing or one of these major US companies, and you actually use this lighting to spy on them. People would be willing to pay big money for the information, right? So what the lighting industry has to do, or what IoT has to do, that's a negative, bad spying business case I've made. But I've created a situation where the information value exceeds the value of the energy savings, of the delivered light, of the maintenance, and everything, right? That's the kind of business case the lighting industry has to develop beyond, so that people that want information and data are willing to pay for it enough to the point where it subsidizes or pays for the entire capital cost of the lighting project.
So that's a very interesting use case, Michael, and I'm not going to be able to put in my position to discuss that because that's pretty sinister, to be honest.
Yes, for sure. But that's the only way I can see the data being valuable.
Actually, I think there's some much brighter examples, and then
give me one.
Yeah, so I will tell you one. But before that, though, I want to talk about in that scenario, the Hewlett Packard, the IBM in the world. Surely they have some of the best. I was a security expert when they consider how to plug in this connected lighting into their existing IP backbone. They were putting a lot of provision to guard against that type of misuse or illegal usage of data. So I think that that's something, and I can say for a fact that company like Apple and Google for the world, they have their own connected lighting system. So surely they will put that into consideration. But I want to tell you something I thought is a little brighter and more, I guess, is really show what the connected lighting can be for a school application. And this is an example which is very hard to quantify the actual benefit, but the impact is very visible and profound. And I think that's the scenario that we'll start to realize more and more. So can focus more on the perception rather than the actual dollar and cents. Because I think the lighting, as you probably know, it really sets the mood, right? Daytime versus evening, when you change the lighting, how do you change the atmosphere? And so in this example, I'm fortunate enough to witness firsthand when I went to the classroom in San Diego, and I was actually fortunate enough be able to attend this event called the Strategy in Light in San Diego earlier this year.
We were there.
Yep. So I stopped by one of the classroom who put in a connected wireless system, and system is room-based wireless. But what makes it so unique is the fact that the teacher can use the connected lighting to change not only the light intensity but also the color temperature. So
I got that's mine. I have the next thing written down on my sheet is the contradiction between circadian and IoT.
Okay. All right.
So I see those two things. So circadian, the thrust towards circadian and healthy lighting systems seems to be in contradiction with IoT. So, or the promises of IoT. So right now, all the people, well, you can control your own lighting. You can come into your office and you can set it up so that it's different temperatures and all this sort of stuff. But really what the circadian people have been telling us is that no, circadian is going to be a prescribed thing. So that this is circadian healthy lighting and nothing else is, whether you like it or not. So there's like this thrust that says no, circadian healthy lighting has these characteristics and starts at this time and does these things over a course of a period of time. And IoT, the idea of being able to change that, somewhat offends the circadian argument. So I feel like there's these two stars in the lighting business right now flashing through the sky, but they're not, their promises are contradictory to one another.
I think that there are a couple of things I want to mention about that. I think that those could actually become a happy coexistence in this particular example. And the reason why I said is the following, because when we talk about circadian lighting, my interpretation is that there's specific rhythm, the color temperature over time. And then you can use this sort of, you have set up this sort of profile over the course of the day. And that's one, I'll call it a centralized control scenario. Okay. On the other extreme, well, so actually the other case is which I have experienced personally is that someone can use so-called connected lighting to change the scene and the mood of the classroom with a wireless control. So without getting into the specific technology, let me give you a little bit overview of this classroom, for example. So this teacher, she is, so she has a classroom students, and then she need to have the light replaced because the room is not very, what she considered very friendly for the students. It is tucked in the corner of a school. This is a private school, by the way. And I don't want to give in all the specific detail about the name and so on. But the point is that through some sort of volunteer effort, and the Signify was part of that, we're able to put in this connected lighting system in which the teacher can use a wireless control to change the color temperature as well as intensity in the classroom from 1% to 100% in terms of lighting output, or 2700 to 6500. All right. So this is a case where the teacher has the total autonomy on controlling the light color temperature and light intensity using the so-called connected wireless system. And then the thing now, as she said, was very profound is that with that sort of a control, she's able to engage a student in a way that she never had before, because she can let a student, for example, who might earn this credit to change the color temperature for that particular period, to change the color temperature as well intensity based on what that student feel like is best for him. So there's a different level of control.
What does he know? And what does she know?
Well, see, here's the deal. She's not operating from the perspective of, I want to optimize the circadian rhythm. It's about feel. It's about visual impact. I think this is a very important part of the lighting. Is that,
but that's where circadian and IoT contradict one another.
See, Michael, that's the thing that there might be a prescribed view, and I'm certainly not an expert. I'm not in the academia side. Actually, PNNL has I believe, a webinar coming up pretty soon. And one of the presenter, Andrea, actually is someone who I've reached out to since our first webinar. So I want to give a shout out to her as well. I think there's a lot more.
Andrea.
Yeah, Andrea, right there. But there's a lot more to the science behind circadian rhythm that we're just in the process of discovering, right? To be able to establish the baseline and how we can optimize that. So I'm going to step away from that for a moment. But with the connected lighting, to give you the control that you wouldn't have before. And that's where the connected lighting, and we're not talking about data point, by the way, we're talking perception. Because in this case, the teacher said verbatim that her classroom has transformed from a dungeon. I'm not kidding you. He literally used the word dungeon into a place of pride and joy, because the way that she can interact with a student, the way they can control the mood, the color temperature, the light intensity that fits them. And so they may have their own specific set of attitude or perception of what a color can do to them, but that is indisputable. You can control it, set it to a level that you like. Right. So this is one small pocket of example, which I hope to see more of going forward, because I'm also working with a multiple control company to deploy this so-called digital lighting control system that can change the color temperature across multiple areas, schools, commercial buildings, you name it. So we will be able to have a much wider body of evidence to show that what is circadian rhythm means. Do we want to automate it, or you want to get the user in the room ability to set it to their own liking? So it's still pretty new, but from a connecting lighting standpoint, there are a couple of innovations that I feel is very strongly that I want to bring out is that you now have a way to connect and control them. And also you can change the color temperature that you may or may not have before. Or if you do, it might be very expensive. And we're going to change all of that with this new innovation that we have.
Yeah.
Now you just need to make it affordable. So that's the issue that we run into. Is great idea. I'm working with a school district right now. I've given them 3 proposals. One is to retrofit their fixtures with tubes. One is to insert new fixtures. And then one is to add controls to those. And the price significantly increases as you go. As you know, tubes to fixtures is a huge increase. Yep. And now fixtures to controls is like similar to Michael's situation, 400,000 to 700,000, just like that. And can you justify that extra 300,000 for that control? That's the tough part for us as people that
and you're not including training everyone how to use it.
Yes.
So I think I'll have to say this, and with any new technology innovation, there's always a learning curve, and then the price would come down, right? Just think about like a smartphone. How many people had smartphones, say 15, 10 years ago? But now it becomes such an indispensable part, and there's also different price point for the smartphone too.
But there's a reason for that. You know why, Robert? There's a reason for that. So we all, I don't know if you've ever heard people say, so I believe that humans are very smart. Okay. I don't buy into the
horsepower out there.
Yeah. I don't. And I think humans make rational decisions. Now, as a group, maybe it doesn't seem rational or whatever, but I think most people are smart. And I think most people make good decisions for themselves in their lives. And I think arguments against that, I don't like it. So here's what people have adopted cell phones because it improves their lives so much. Mm-hmm. And those improvements are obvious to them as soon as they get them. And other people that don't have them notice that they're lacking something, like Google Maps and all these different applications, right? That we use on our phones that were literally unimaginable 20 years ago. Unimaginable, okay? Not unimaginable, but beyond the idea of democratizing them to the masses, okay? So we will switch extremely fast and we will adopt new technologies very quickly if the benefits are obvious. Mm-hmm. Okay? I think we're in the situation right now with IoT and lighting that the benefits are still not obvious.
Well, I think that it may be, in terms of benefit, in that example that I mentioned about the teacher is so obvious to the point that before I left, she said, other teacher came to her and said, I would love to have that system. Mm. They all want it. And then the students told her that I like this classroom for the way it makes me feel. So can you put a dollar amount in that particular example of user satisfaction about improving the the scores? We don't have the data just yet to prove it, but the perception is indisputable. The feeling, the testimonial, right? So there's a bit of a gap between where we are today in terms of cost versus some of the intangible aspect that Connect Lighting may bring. And that's where I think that we're still in the early phase, and that's why I'm working with 3 different control companies, for example, but trying to kind of bring that solution to the market so we have better way to articulate the benefit. But in terms of that one small example, the teacher, she loved it so much. She loved it. And she said that, Robert, if there's an opportunity for me to help you to bring this word out to the masses, to other teachers, she would love to do so.
Robert E. Lee.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for being a guest on the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast.
Thank you. You guys take care. Bye-bye.
Signify, signify.com, Greggy.
Had a great discussion today on connected lighting, and these guys truly are the leader when it comes to that. They have a lot of time, effort, investment into it, and they're coming out with innovative product that are really going to truly connect lighting to the people using it. That's what Signify is all about, being innovative in lighting, being a leader, and they're here for that.
We're on the threshold of something crazy. But first, if you want to know what it is, you got to go to signify.com because they're the leaders in all this. signify.com, signify.com, longtime member of NAILD, the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors. Go to naild.org. If you haven't joined, what you waiting for, huh? Up it up, it up, bop, 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 bop. Join NAILD if you're in lighting. If you're a lighting distributor, get on it. And of course, Robert, thanks for joining us in the show and talking about lighting, especially connected lighting, Greg.
That's right.
Thanks for listening, folks.
Written on the rectory wall, there's a sign there for all. you are lost, Lord is there to find you.